in history, I think we have been subjected to some epic abuses. I'm talking about the idea that humanity, people, the historical evidence suggests, even very recent, when you're thinking about atrocities committed, the wars that have taken, the bloodletting in wars, continuing wars everywhere, the bloodletting, the abuses on us, humanity, have been epic, epic. And I was thinking, what is it? What is it that makes us us, that we appear to be very compliant within this system of abuse? And people that have paid attention to me over time, when I reflect on culture, and notwithstanding the highlights of people that I really love within culture, but the history of culture has been a record of the abuses. Basically 90 whatever percent, 95%, 98% documentation of history is a history of war, or the abuses. And interestingly, I'm wearing my hat, and I'm going to with the five-sided star, And what is this five-sided star? What does this mean? And to some people, there is a reference, and let's see if I can show you what I have on my screen. I don't know how to screen capture, but the Vesuvian man that you see here. Let me just sort of show you this. Can you see this? This is Da Vinci's famous Vesuvian man. In fact, there was another fellow called Giacomo somebody. He had a version of it himself a little bit prior to Da Vinci. So this sort of image that we see, whether it's Da Vinci's or Giacomo somebody, forget it. Anyway, people that are wondering about why I have this symbol, and it represents a proportion. It is symbolic. It is a symbol. I like symbols as in terms of being able to communicate something immediately. It is a symbol, and my man is not exactly a Da Vinci reproduction. He's a little clumsy, and I kind of like clumsiness. But what my thoughts, my reference to this image, it's apropos because this is related to my last video on what is beauty. And my conclusion on the incredible abuses is that we have shifted our sensibilities. We wake up, we breathe, we absorb what is around us, and at the best of times, we react in a way to our environment, to the interactions, what it is that comes towards us, not from a nihilistic perspective, which is what culture focuses on primarily. History is basically a documentation of the abuses. This is what I'm saying. Think about this, that we're not focused on the ideal proportions, and it's actually hijacked as well because this five-sided star turned the other way around, that if you turn it upside down, it becomes that sort of demonic idea or whatever. There's always like a catch to things. People have commented, well, you're a devil worshiper, you hit a pentagram and, Baphomet and all that kind of shit. But the notion that we relate to our experience comes out of for me, a primordial sense of what I perceive to be a beauty. This is something that I touched on from the point of view in my first video, talking about the rightness of something. And when you look at this image, and if you want to prefer to look at Leonardo's image, an artist I don't respect very much. I'm not saying he wasn't extremely capable and creative. I'm just saying I don't respect the conclusions that I arrive at when I look at his entire life, what I understand it to be. He was a designer of WMDs for the Count of Milano for 18 years, as opposed to somebody, let's say, like Giotto or Masaccio or even Michelangelo. I'm not crazy about Michelangelo. He's got this sort of weird male-oriented vision of the form, the female form. It kind of is disturbing to me, I have to say, that the women that he painted looked like guys in drag quite often. It's like they have very masculine, they have masculine features that I don't perceive. I don't see the female form the way Michelangelo saw it. On the other hand, I also see the vision that he presented us. I mean, the sheer tour de force, if you're thinking about the Sistine Chapel. And he had, after a year and a half of work, he had to scrape it all off because the plaster mixture was wrong and they had to start again. And just imagine yourself lying, you know, on some sort of scaffold with your head up. It's a monumental effort. This guy had a vision and he saw it through no matter what. You got to respect that, and never for me to say respect that. I mean, what an extraordinary human being. And in my humble self, I recreate the universe through my own sense of self in my work. I take things in from the outside, but what am I talking about here? I'm talking about perfection, the proportions that were propagated to be perfect within this framework with a Vitruvian man. He apparently was some Roman philosopher in the 1st century BC. That's a whole other thing, BC, before Christ. Yeah, notions of history are so twisted and warped. How we see ourselves in terms of longevity, how things have existed for millions of years and then thousands of years, and everything fits into a nice little cubby hole designed by Scaligerian Petavius in the 17th and 16th century. You can go into this, how history was formed in an anthology that was based on the ideas of a couple of Jesuits way back when. Anyway, I deviate. There's so many things here. Okay, I'm thinking about beauty, and I'm thinking about proportions, and proportions now indicate what I was saying again in my first video about beauty. There is a rightness to something, and I highlight this idea that going to this Vitruvian man that Da Vinci put into this 5-sided figure, there is a proportion, there's a rightness, the idea of the golden rule. This is something many artists studied. I have looked at this history of the divine proportion idea, that people go back and they say, well, all great paintings of the Renaissance were basically a reflection of this discovery of this perfection. It's what science actually refers to. If you look at fractals and you look at the Mandelbrot set and you look at modern science understanding this proportion within the helix of something, that if you see a cauliflower or if you see a conch, a shell, that spiral kind of beautiful reproduction of itself and creating enormous power and strength, like physical. But I'm more interested in the emotional side of things, that spiritual side of things, and the physical world represents the emotional side to us. And this is a huge topic when you come into a sense of beauty, what it is that we perceive as being beautiful. And when I said the rightness of something, that is a starting point, a very important starting point, and especially when you look at, for example, artists talking about their work. And there's a proponent, a critic that was really recognized as being the epitome of art consciousness, called Clement Greenberg in the 50s and 60s. And he wrote for Art in this Century. No, that was a gallery. I forget. There was a magazine that he wrote for. It might have been called Art in the Century, or was that Betty Parsons Gallery or Guggenheim? Anyway, he wrote articles on a rightness within an art, so that within a painting, for example. So he would say, artists do something and look at it, and then will say it works or it doesn't work. What the hell does that mean? In art school, I was being exposed to this. Well, it works, it doesn't work. I hated it, but somebody said, well, it works. Or you look at something that is like, okay, so what? Oh, it works. What the hell does that mean? It works. So this guy used this concept of this divine proportion in the format of saying it works or it doesn't work. So artists quite often rely on the idea that I sit in front of something, I reflect on it, and I stop working on it, for example, and I say it works, don't touch it, it works. It's kind of like this blue and this orange and a yellow and a gray and a brown or whatever. The proportions somehow come together miraculously and it works. Well, what the hell does that mean? It means it comes from this. The concept of the Renaissance establishing a framework, a basis of the rightness of something within the concept of a proportion. All right, this is an idea. This is nothing new. You can research this. So beauty in the Renaissance was fundamentally based on the rightness of something. That's all I was saying. And I'm not a great fan of the Renaissance. I'm not somebody who I don't attach myself to the discoveries and the mathematical brilliance and the architecture and some of the stuff that was produced. When you look at Bellini or Bernini's famous sculpture of the Ecstasy of St. Anne, I think it was. And it's just extraordinary. The hand-eye coordination that seems to have been exercised. And there were other examples of this with, I forget this sculptor who basically sculpted this figure caught in a net. And it is physically, I think physically impossible, this is a whole other topic, physically impossible for this character just to sculpt a figure caught in a net, how he got into the undercuts and was able, in marble, a solid piece of marble, carved out with the netting, just perfectly reproduced. It's extraordinary. It's almost like a 3D printer producing this, or some kind of a device, a CNC machine that is able to do like this incredible, yeah, I don't know how they manage that. It's still a puzzle to me. Okay, my thoughts today about the incredible abuses that have been practiced on us is fundamentally related to the idea of beauty. This might be a little controversial, but I think it's relating to the idea of beauty and the rightness and something shifting within our own consciousness that makes us comply with this aberration. Well, in the last video, I called it an ugliness, so that what is ugly actually becomes beautiful. And I'm not averse to ugliness from the point of view that it represents something like, for example, Goya's painting of Saturn eating his children, or even somebody in contemporary history like Francis Bacon making his grotesque imagery, or Lucian Freud, the grotesque imagery that actually evokes something that is so powerful, where I overcome the initial response of this ugliness. It is curiously, I don't really understand this within myself. It is transcendent to be able to navigate within this concept of beauty and make ugly look transcendent in some form. This will be another discussion. I'm not going to get into this today, how ugliness actually becomes transcendent within the concept of what we may consider to be beautiful. It's not anomalous. It fits together, because what Georg Baselitz said about German art, it's a history of ugliness. If you look at Bruegel and Hieronymus Bosch, he was more Flemish. These painters, Flemish German painters, and the sort of gargoyles and representations, the sort of crude representations that were being produced in the German Renaissance and after that, are actually quite grotesque and ugly, but they have a relationship with what I'm interested in when I say beauty. There's a rightness to something. So you see, when I say rightness, beauty doesn't have to be sort of this sense of peanut butter and jam, if that's what you like. It's actually maybe more like something, an astringent taste. I never really liked arugula. I don't know why not. I love arugula now. It didn't fit into my into the canon of my taste buds, or even there are different spices that I've actually learned to appreciate a lot more and enjoy that I didn't before. So what I'm saying is that as a grouping, as a community, as a people that are under the umbrella of something much larger than the individual. There's a grouping that we form, that we actually become a force within this experience. That idea of democracy, which doesn't really exist, but the idea that we have some kind of control within ourselves to affect the world out there, which is very evident to me. And the fact that we have been so abused over history means that something that is not right has been able to have incredible influence over us. So we've lost a sense of beauty, which is the rightness of something. Again, I come back to this. I'm not going to get stuck on this. I will develop this idea a little bit more as I go on. The idea of beauty, that there is something that makes things proportionately feeling right. An artist looks at a painting, it feels right. You have an experience, there's a sweetness in an experience, it feels right. And you can put this label of beauty on that. I would have no problem listening to you explaining to me how something feels right and as such has a beauty to it, whichever way that might be. But the basic, the a posteriori, the experience is a rightness of something that makes it beautiful. Can something that is not right be beautiful? I don't think so. I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. It just opposes it to something, in your own formulation of what I'm talking about, what I'm introducing here. And there's a reason why I'm talking about beauty, because it's something that has been so ignored in human history, or it has been interpreted for us, like Clement Greenberg trying to hijack this concept and making us think that a certain object called a painting is right or wrong. It's right or wrong. It's right or wrong. I am the progenitor of right and wrongness in the art world. This was Clement Greenberg, and I don't know how he ended up. I think he was miserably lonely. He was a lonely person. Look at the people that in history that impress you and look at their lives. See what kind of lives they led and whether they were, what would be the word, kind of like at peace with themselves, or whether they reflected some kind of a sense of, just like an outsiderness, not from the point of view that nobody talked to them, but a sort of like a lonely feel. You can be alone but not feel lonely. Like I am alone most of the time, but I honestly don't feel lonely because I am working on things in my own life that make me feel better or richer for what it is that I'm doing. So even if I don't have contact with people, I don't have this, I don't feel lonely. I'm alone sometimes, but I'm not a lonely person. This all fits into the concept of beauty. I mean, I'm creating a larger swath, and people who listen on YouTube and they want the facts, ma'am. I want the facts. I want it all laid out, the information, everything is right there for you. It's not me. It's not me. Which is why I get, if I'm lucky, 100 views from a few people that I love. By the way, I love the people that come in and listen to what I'm saying, because I'm not like all those people that give you the facts, because I'm not interested in the facts or the information, because the information and the facts are basically entertainment. They like sort of fill a void. It's like when you're feeling empty and you go to the fridge and you don't see anything. That's basically information. Like you at 2 a.m, you feel like something, you go to the fridge and there's like, okay, there's like this thing, but nothing really interests me. That's like information. The fridge is empty. Information is like an empty fridge for me. I can't find anything, not even a bloody goddamn yogurt or something, or a bit of ice cream. I don't have ice cream anymore, but I'm just saying. So when I talk about this, what I want to, I'm laying the groundwork here in this, and it has to do with how, as human beings, the idea of beauty is escaping us because we've been used to be so abused. That's what I'm saying. So when I address this, and I address it in my paintings all the time, what's very important for me is to focus on the rightness of something, not in the Clement Greenberg concept of, yeah, this works, this doesn't work. No, it has to do something much more. It's not so utilitarian. This is not a utilitarian concept. It is an ephemeral concept which is very real. It has some very distinct responses. Like when I make a painting and I look at it or look at somebody else's painting, there is a rightness to it, which has nothing to do with it works or it does. Well, I suppose it could, but I don't like the way this person reduced it to it works or it doesn't work. I prefer the term of rightness. And I think by reflecting in this way, the way I present my thoughts and in my videos, I could go into facts. I could talk about art history with you, but it wouldn't really matter very much. People attach themselves to what it is that a thought might be connected to in the real world. And what I'm saying is to suspend your belief or to listen to people like myself who have likely discovered something about the way we are as human beings, probably has been expressed many times over by many other people, but it hasn't really caught hold. It catches on with a few people that have sensibilities and inclinations, especially on a creative side of things, but it's not essential. We don't need to be all creators of magnificence of some sort. We basically relate to each other in a way, and I'm talking about something that is right, in a way that exalts the best part in each of us. So if I present something to you that you're able to relate to, you're going to feel better about yourself in some way, not worse. And you'll find this with a lot of presenters on YouTube, that they make you actually feel worse, or they tell you all the shit that's going on and how horrible it is. And as much as there is a reality out there that reflects this abuse, I'm saying we need to shift. And I'm presenting you with a shift. This is what I'm saying. This is when I talk about beauty, or what I'm going to talk about now. This represents a shift. It's a bit long-winded, I suppose, over the last 20 minutes to say I represent a shift in the way you listen to people out there, or the way you look at the world. Your worldview is very likely, I got to find the right word because it's important to get the right word sometimes. The worldview that we generally adhere to is, well, number one, not our own. We absorb, we take on other people's ideas and thoughts. This is quite natural, but we have to vet this stuff within ourselves. And the worldview has to come out of an inner conviction. We need to build a worldview not based on what primarily 99% is about abuse and the horror of everything. And I don't have my head in the sand about Fukushima and the events that are unfolding that is destroying our biology on every level here. I don't have my head in the sand, but I'm saying that we need to come at this from a worldview that actually exalts the rightness of something. That's what this little symbol is. So I've come back to this idea because I know that there were a few comments that I love, by the way. Everybody that comments, I've lost most of the attack dogs. They no longer come because they don't have anything on me. They tried to do something, back in 2014, the Calgary event and stuff. They don't have anything on me because I'm not that kind of a person. They were trying to make me out to be a fraud. I talk about something that is so crucial and important in what it means to be a human being right now, meaning I don't want to die from radiation poisoning. That's all I'm saying. How can you discredit a person that shouts at the top of their lungs, whoever it might be, right or wrong in terms of delivery? I've separated myself from people with the delivery that doesn't really work, but still they have value to me because they understand what I understand. It's just the way I deliver this sensibility, this understanding, I think it's much deeper and more profound than to get stuck on the information on the world that is presented to us, the abusive world that is represented to us. So the attack dogs have left because they got nothing. They've got nothing. They may come up with something again if I rattle a cage in some form, if I get my work into the public domain and I talk about Fukushima and I talk about how I feel, it may happen again. I don't know. I'm not sure how intense this surveillance, we're all being surveilled. This is all a fact. Whatever the machinations are of the algorithms on YouTube or wherever else, I mean, I'm exposed. I've made my videos since 2009, almost 10 years now. So there's no way within the system of surveillance that, I mean, whoever is watching. And I'm saying to myself, okay, for good or bad, I have to present, like I have to make my paintings, I actually also have to do this. I don't know why, but I feel I have to. I've been discouraged through the attack dogs, but also in my own circle, saying you're not getting anywhere. Why do you bother? Why do you put your head out there? Why do you put your neck out there? What's the point? Well, that's the point. We need to stand up for the rightness of something. This is beauty. This is beauty. Whenever you actually defend the right in some form or other, that is absolutely beautiful. I would even say it's elegant. There is a level of elegance. Beauty contains elegance, but the idea of elegance is also involved in this concept. So today, what I'm going to probably label this is monumental abuses that have been practiced and we've complied with, just even in terms of wars, if you want to do it this way. If you get into Kevin Annett's notion of Canada, which is basically a state that has established itself on the death and murder of Indigenous children. This is Kevin Annett. This is the abuse on a national level. This has happened in Canada, that this country is built on the corpses of Native children and the Native community that was invaded whenever it was when this degenerate Columbus arrived and all his entourage from Europe, if this history is correct. This is what the Americas is built on. What we have now of the Americas is one of the most egregious abuses ever in the history of abuse, when you think about it. There were the research I've done into this, there may have been as many as 180 million people that were murdered in order to establish the Americas. Now this could be something for attack dogs. Like Kevin Annett has been hounded like you wouldn't believe. He's still out there. He's still out there making his videos and telling people how brutal it is. And even though there have been apologies by the churches and by the state, this has nothing to do with setting things right. The rightness has not been achieved. And I implore this country to do the right thing. It's never too late. Anyway, the attack dogs have nothing on me, have nothing on Annett. He's doing the right thing. People that do the right thing, they may have tribulations and difficulties because it's not appreciated. That's an understatement. It's not appreciated. You will be made to suffer, but we gotta do the right thing, people. We have to actually stand behind what it is that we feel and think and understand. Once we've reached a level of insight, this is important as well. Okay, I'll end it here. That this concept that is inspiring, another word that's really important to me, the inspiration behind this concept, behind the reality of beauty, is absolutely crucial in order for us to be able to transition. And I'm saying transition very consciously here, because I don't think we can sustain what we understand to be the best part of this, the humanness that we experience when we see each other. We're taking each other for granted. I mean, even with the idea, oh, there's 7 billion, too many out there, or whatever. No, each soul is absolutely crucial to what it is that we're experiencing. To be able to recover something for ourselves within this experience. Then I was born 67 years ago. This is what I'm saying. While I'm here, I need to be able to function within this realm of rightness. at some point or other. And I wasn't aware of this before. I'm becoming more aware of it now, and beauty is absolutely crucial and central to this. And what does that mean? I will go into it some more.